Okay. Okay. Good afternoon to one and all here. I am happy to be part of this program. I was invited by Professor Mudgal few days ago on this occasion. So immediately accepted to give a talk in the area of biodiversity. I also came to know that International Day of Biological Diversity, that is on 22nd May. The biodiversity is a very prominent topic and it's so important topic for each and every one of us. And so I am happy to be part of this program. I selected the topic as natural systems for wastewater treatment and reuse, as this finds part of the biodiversity scenario. Mainly when we talk about the food health and biodiversity, we talk about wastewater also as one of the things. Since wastewater is being given more prominence because mainly for reuse of the wastewater, because we find the scarcity of the fresh water. We have water everywhere, but there is no potable water to drink. The future going to come also, we are going to face shortages in the water sector. That's why I thought we'll talk a little bit on this particular aspect of wastewater. Before going into the actual wastewater, I just wanted to talk a little bit on the biodiversity aspect. The theme of this particular this 22nd May is our solutions are in nature. That's what they theme. Our solutions are in the nature. Emphasizes the hope, solidarity, and the importance of working together at all levels to build a future of life in harmony with nature. In harmony with nature. This is what is so important. Words, we have to note this. And the main aspect is our solutions are in nature. So we have been in this part of the world, we are part of the environment, but what we give back to the environment, that is what we give back, what we give to the nature from our contribution to the world. That is what is so important. So 2020 seems to be reflecting each one of our activities and the opportunity what we are going to give to the Mother Earth. Okay. So what we mean by the nature-based solutions? So we can give solutions based on the nature, or we can mimic nature also. Okay, but nature itself has its own mechanism to reorient itself to the onslaughts of the humanity or the people.
Sir, excuse me, sir. Sir, excuse me.
Yes.
Sir, one small help, sir. In the fit to page, there is an option called fit to page on the top of your screen, sir. Can you just press it? Click it. Right side, right side on the top. No, sir. Right side, right side. On the center, you have fit to page, no, sir.
Yes.
Left
yes. Okay.
The same one, sir. Click it, sir.
Okay.
Okay, fine, sir. Now you can proceed, sir. Thank you, sir.
It is a little bit extra. Okay. Okay. Fine. Very good. Okay. Natural-based solutions. As per the IUCN, that is International Union for Conservation of Nature, the nature-based solutions are nothing but actions to protect, sustainably manage, and restore natural or modified ecosystems that address societal challenges effectively and adapting, simultaneously providing human well-being and biodiversity benefits. So it encompasses so many aspects. What we are, we have to see the meaning of each and every word to know the meaning of nature-based solutions. Next, I'll go to the next slide. I think I'll just scroll it down. Scroll, that is better for me. So biodiversity. So we can have 4 components. We can think of 4 different components here. One is on the functional diversity. Then second one is ecological diversity. Third one is genetic biodiversity and species diversity. So, coming to the functional diversity. So it talks about the functional aspects of the diversity. Of course, the biogeochemical cycling, etc. So what the each and every biotic elements and abiotic elements play a role. All these things come inside this functional, biotic functional diversity. Okay. Ecological diversity. So we have different ecosystems. So we have a forest ecosystem, desert ecosystem, aquatic ecosystem, and so on. So we have the forest ecosystem. Then we have the tropical rainforest or evergreen forest, and so on. So each ecosystem is unique in its own way. So it has its own functions to carry on, etc. So ecological diversity. So that also one of the important topics what we talk about. And genetic diversity is how these different biotic elements have diversified genetically, how it has changed, modified, etc. over evolutional. It has its own evolutionary significance. The development of new species or having more resistant species, etc. The alien species and indigenous species and so on. All those things we can we talk about in the genetic diversity. And species diversity as well. So each genus has single species or multiple species and varieties and strains level, etc. and so on. So the variety of species what available in the biome, that is what we are talking about in this. Okay, I think I should roll it again. Okay, so so you have lakhs and lakhs of biological diversity, which is categorized into different forms. So we have the insects, which is occupying the larger part, and the higher plants, and animals, and then microorganisms. So we have a variety of microorganisms as well. So like algae, fungi, virus, protozoa, and so on. So now we have another important topic what we are witnessing every day, that is a coronavirus, which has been introduced into the society. So that is also so how this each one play a role, and they form the biodiversity, etc. So the importance of biodiversity. What is the importance of biodiversity? So we have diverse species, fauna, flora, and so on. So there is each one plays a role. So on the earth, in the environment, and in the ecosystem. So mainly to maintain the soil quality. So we have a forest ecosystem, forest soil, agricultural soils. So each soil is different. Soil quality is different, texture is different, and the biotic elements what live in that soil, it is different. So we find variety of algae, bacteria, fungi, mites, and so on to maintain the soil quality. So it becomes, the soil becomes rich in nutrients and organic matter, etc. Then second aspect is the air quality. So yeah, the plants has the endowed capacity to purify the air. So they take up the carbon dioxide and liberate oxygen due to the process photosynthesis. So that is one important aspect of all green plants, aquatic as well as terrestrial plants. So the purification of the air, that is, there are so many plants which have been notified meant for air purification aspects, even in industrial environment as well. Then water quality. So water quality maintenance. So here what we address here is how the water is purified due to the biota present in the water, because there is what is called as food chain, food web, and nutrient turnover, carbon turnover, and so on. So all these aspects, and also the pollution of the water. So these are all the aspects that is giving importance to the biodiversity and the different biotic elements that we witness every day. Okay, I just also wanted to talk about a little bit on the food and biodiversity, because since it is biodiversity means we have to talk about food as well as the health also. So we have homogeneous. What is now the we have to address more is the homogeneous food materials or the diets, or the poor food issues. So these two aspects are the main things which has to be addressed. For example, it says, the literature says, 1 in 3 persons in the world suffer from deficiency of nutrients, variety of nutrients. It can be one nutrient or many nutrients. Okay, so and also the data states more than 2 billion people are obese, are having extra weight, and they are obese. So this may be due to the different deficiencies, or sometimes over consumption also. And second aspect is the food and nutrition. What we are, what they address is resilient food system. So this means actually this addresses those issues, or they recommend how to make use of the indigenous crops rather than relying on crops from international varieties or from another world to bring it inside and try to grow it, etc. So rather than that, we can go for indigenous crops or locally available crops, strains, etc. So that it will give the locally, it will be more adaptable for the concerned tropical or temperate climate. So that is what it advocates, the food and biodiversity. And there are several challenges. So food, we talk, when we say food, then it comes to agricultural production. So agriculture. India being the primary country having agriculture as the main for food production. So there are many challenges. And for example, the production need has to increase because to match the population. So this means the increase of about 70% to cope with the population increase, and change demands for meat, dairy, and other products. There's a preference has changed over the years. So that also have to be met. So there is an extra need, extra production is necessary. And this leads to land requirement, competition for land and water from the growing urban population. Since the population explosion is there, so there is more people move to urban areas, and more facilities, more sophistication, etc. So more urbanized areas, people try to colonize. So there is competition for land and water. So this takes away the agricultural land as well. Lastly, I have this nutrients, like the nutrient that is phosphorus, depletion of phosphorus. Phosphorus is one of the nutrients that is required by the plant, along with nitrogen. So the depletion of phosphorus is enormous. So there is always we have to replenish the phosphate. That is one of the, so we have to rely on only the fertilizers, phosphatic fertilizers and nitrogen, etc. for the agricultural production. So then climate change. This climate change is also contributes, for example, for the reduction in the crop production. So we talk about climate change and then we talk about global warming. So extra even 0.1 degrees centigrade increase as contributes enormously, reflects on the reduction in the output, agricultural output. And we also talk about, so global warming means we also say sea level rise, inundation or floods, etc. and so on, other things accompanied by the global warming. And some data, for example, what I can present it here, South Africa, for example, they have up to 30%. In 2030, they require at least 30% increase in the maize production. And Asia, 10% of the rice will be on for the rice requirement. And then decline in millet and maize production could exceed even 10%. That's what it says as far as the Asian region is concerned. Then we have extreme events, what we experience in the localized region. So it results in greater unpredictable situation because the season changes. It is not in the same way. So the season, the number of weeks or months keeps changing. Then most of the food secure people, for example, it says 70%. Live and work in rural areas. For example, even small scale farmers, still they constitute 50% in the developing country. So this there is no security for food for those people who are living in the rural sector. So when we talk about this agricultural production, there are some 5 different aspects which I may have to bring into to this forum. One, as I already said, the land availability, that is of foremost importance. So we have expanded our agricultural production. So our land area we have expanded. We try to cultivate in more land area to put into agricultural use. Approximately 5 million hectares are put extra for agricultural production. In, for example, in Latin American countries alone. So this accounts for roughly 35%. That's what it is. So other countries contribute slightly lesser percentage. So then next is increase in the arable land. So roughly 70 million hectares have been put into use, which now in case of developing countries, it accounts for 120 million hectares. So this is supposed to contribute to 21% of growth in crop production. Between this period, now the present period till 2050. So this is going to be put into use, and then we are going to see the requirement of approximately 21% growth in the crop production. Water scarcity, this is another important aspect because water is available everywhere, but it is not really potable water. So agriculture is the main sector which requires roughly 70% of the water available on the planet for agricultural production. So there is actually a physical water scarcity, and that what we are experiencing, and we are going to experience much more in the years to come. So then by 2025, approximately 1.8 billion people will live in countries or regions with absolute water scarcity. This is what the UN data says. So it may increase further. This is data of 2005. Probably it will increase in the years to come. And then use of groundwater. Enormous amount of groundwater is being used, pumping the groundwater for various reasons. Agriculture, even agricultural production, because if the monsoon fails, then people resort to tapping the groundwater. So this happens in many countries, especially China, India, Mexico, Pakistan, Africa, and so on. So many places, many countries, they resort to groundwater, look for groundwater for their regular requirement, even for agricultural production. Then what we see is the fragmentation of the rivers. Approximately 60% of the world's rivers are fragmented. So how we are going to link these things to augment water for the regions experiencing scarcity in water? That is one of the important aspects is being addressed, and it will be addressed in the years to come. And there are so many industries which require large amount of water. Mainly the industries require large amount of water, especially we can say hydropower stations. Then restoration of streams, we require large amount of water, and for recreational use, freshwater fisheries, and also to protect the natural ecosystems. So for all these things, we look for water. So there is a scarcity. So there is always going to be a lot of competition in the years to come. The overuse of nutrients. So nutrients is not used as it is required in required quantity. So there is a mismanagement of even fertilizers. So input of extra fertilizer, so naturally it will not be taken up by the plants, or it will not be retained in the soil, so but it will be washed off. So once it is washed off, whatever agriculture runoff, it goes and meets the nearby lake or river, whatever it may be. So it contaminates and causes pollution. So the nutrient pollution and pesticide pollution, all these aspects, they keep happening because we also use enormous amount of pesticides for our pest control in agricultural crop production. Then another thing is roughly 30 to 50% of nitrogen that is not taken up, so it is wasted. And roughly 45% of phosphorus. The balance is not taken up by the plant, so it has to reach some other, it has to stay back in the soil system, or it has to go and reach some water body. Then we also have nitrogen emissions, variety of nitrogen oxides emissions that also we face. because of rapid industrialization and also the large amount of use of the nitrogenous fertilizers. And lastly, the agrochemicals. So we, for the crops, we use variety of chemicals. So we use in excess, not in required amount. It's always used in excess because we want to control whatever that is pest that is occurring. So we resort to a variety of pest management system. Fourth aspect, what I would like to impress upon is the climate change. And just now I told about this also. So climate change brings about a lot of changes in agricultural production as well, because the changes in the temperature, because the crop yield also changes, the rain pattern it changes, and it may lead to loss in the yield, farm production, etc. So this is what has been advocated by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Talks about the crop yield loss as well. And this type of increase in the temperature, etc., it also brings about changes in the pest. So the pest, what is available, what we have been witnessing few years ago may not be available now, but there may be different types of pests that may come into. So it may not be sensitive to the pesticide what they are spraying, so it has already resistance. So this will lead to additional pest management as well to deal with the new insect pest, which is more resistant to the pesticides in the agricultural sector. Lastly, the productivity and sustainability. So if you want to achieve sustainable increase in the productivity, so what we have to look for, development of appropriate mix of the plant and livestock varieties. That is what is required. And to avoid unnecessary use of external inputs in the form of fertilizers or in the form of pesticides and so on. Harness agroecological processes as it is required, and then minimizing the use of harmful technologies or which are outdated technologies, and also harnessing the human capital to adapt and innovate to the newer situations, etc. So this, we are expected to do to concentrate on all these aspects to increase the productivity or to make it more sustainable. So with this, so then I think I'm feeling about infectious diseases also, because we are living in the lockdown period or the corona period. So the infectious diseases also contributed by the biodiversity. So variety of new pests or new insects or new microorganisms that can evolve due to the temperature change or due to the genetic variability or genetic exchange. This also can happen. Now we are facing another new disease or corona caused by corona, whether it is man-made or it is a natural virus, we do not know. But so like that, variety of infectious disease are also part of this biodiversity scenario, and it affects the human health. Okay, and then it also affects the major processes that is going on in the ecosystem. For example, in the transmission of diseases and deforestation, then land use change, and the type of crops we may have to adapt or to use, production, etc. So all these things, then how to manage the water scarcity, etc. So all these things are interlinked as far as health aspects are concerned. Okay, so with this these things, then now I just wanted to enter into the main aspect of my this thing. So I thought to address the natural systems, especially I have taken up two important aspects, that is waste stabilization pond and wetland system when we address the wastewater treatment and reuse. The first one, waste stabilization pond, is not the new one. It is well known. It's an age-old process. So it's a very, we can say it is an ancient process, and then only so many other technologies have developed in the treatment of wastewater. And the second aspect is the second topic is the wetland system. So we have what is called as the natural wetlands. We know the natural wetlands that is formed between the land and the aquatic body. So we can imitate the natural wetland, or we can create our own wetland to do a particular job. For example, wastewater treatment. That is what I am going to address in this second aspect of, that is, wetland system. So coming to the waste stabilization pond. So waste stabilization is nothing but a small pond. Yes, just like a pond. Of course, the depth of the pond will vary, and what all the process that go on in the pond, that may vary. So that is what is called as, it stabilizes the waste. That is why it is called as waste stabilization pond. So this type of ponds can be used for treatment of black water, or even the grey water as well, or even to treat the fecal sludge. Even the stabilization ponds can be used mainly to get rid of the organics and the nutrients, and also the microorganisms or the harmful organisms which are present in the wastewater. So this type of stabilization ponds have been over generations and generations is being used for treatment of sewage or the domestic wastewater, etc. It requires land area. That's what. So we can think of three different types of ponds depending upon the processes that go on in the particular stabilization pond. So the first one is called as an anaerobic pond. Second is facultative pond, and aerobic or maturation pond. As the name says, anaerobic pond, so it is more anaerobic situation or anaerobic processes go on in such type of ponds which are called as anaerobic pond. Here the important aspect here is the depth will be really high, will be more compared to the other two types of ponds. Then we have the facultative pond, which is in between the aerobic and the anaerobic, or it has both the systems. And aerobic ponds are nothing but otherwise called as a maturation pond, and it is more aerobic in nature and not anaerobic, or almost less amount of anaerobic process that go on. Generally, this type of stabilization ponds are known for low cost because there is no mechanical parts that is being used. So it is only a land is required, and then the pond area is required. Then you can treat it by the natural process. So that's why it is also called as a natural system. So what we expect here in the step of pond is the removal of organic matter. So the organics in terms of BOD, so it can be broken down by the microorganisms, and then the pathogen. So especially in the case of sewage means, then we talk about more amount of bacteria called as coliformous bacteria. So and some other harmful bacteria are also there, pathogenic bacteria are also there sometimes, and then nutrients.